family initiative that will help millions get a big jump on life.
A remarkable cash gift for 25 million American children.
The federal government will be giving newborns $1,000.
But how realistic is all of this? Are there strings attached? And does the math check out? Well, the answer, turns out, is not very, absolutely yes, and sort of. Let me show you. So a Trump account is just an investment account for any American child with a social security number. That's it. That's the basic eligibility. What makes it interesting is that if you happen to be born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028, which is basically the span of Trump's current term in office, then the US government will make a one-time $1,000 deposit into that account. Then the money gets locked into that account for a minimum of 18 years. What does that money do? It grows, because the other constraint for this money is that it must be invested into diversified, low-cost index or mutual funds that track American stocks, like the S&P 500, which, by the way, isn't necessarily a bad thing in terms of your rate of return. Track America's top 500 stocks over the last 18 years, you're up over 500% from where you started if you just let it sit and grow, which turns that initial $1,000 investment into almost $6,400 by the end of year 18. That's an annualized rate of return of about 10.5%, which turns out, for the S&P 500, lines up pretty closely with the actual historical average over many, many decades. Now, say it with me. Past performance is no guarantee of future returns, okay? I am not a financial advisor, I don't have a crystal ball, and I would never suggest what kind of return you're going to get on any amount of money. But for the S&P, let's go with 10.5%. And if we're scrutinizing this government claim that a child using this account should be a millionaire by age 28, then we are gonna let our money ride, right? Keep tracking the S&P for another 10 years at an annualized rate of return of 10.5%, and we end up with $17,000. That's not nothing, but it's also not $1 million. So what are we missing? So clearly, if you're just hoping to magically become a millionaire thanks to Trump's generosity, you can see he's only getting you started, which, just to be both clear and fair, is, remember, exactly what Trump is promising. But how do we get that million? Well, the answer is you. You've got to fill in the blanks. A major feature of the plan is the potential for parents to contribute up to an additional $5,000 per year initially. Underscore parents, underscore an additional $5,000 per year, and underscore initially, because the plan is actually for that annual parental contribution to increase every year, 2% each year after the first. Like you see here in this table. You've got your initial $1,000 seed money, you've got your annual $5,000 contributions every year thereafter, but increasing by 2% each year until your kid gets to be 19 years old, at which point the account, in many ways, turns into something resembling more like a traditional IRA. So the allowable contribution size increases even more, to the point where after 28 years, the way to get to this big $1 million number is for the parents to have invested the sum total of all the numbers in this column, which is $216,537.53.
Never sue the person who hit you after a car accident. I just got $100,000 for an accident I was in last.
So to restate, to leverage the full power of these Trump accounts and make your child a millionaire by age 28, first, you need to assume the S&P 500 is going to continue generating nearly 11% average returns every year for the next 28 years. Then, you need to have at least $5,000, but up to almost $12,000 cash every year to dump into the account, for a grand total of just over $200,000 of your own money. Now, there are two things I should state, again, to be fair. One, the contributions matter much less the more you can let compounding do the work early on. So for example, if you made maximum contributions but only for the first 18 years instead of the full 28. You still actually get surprisingly close to this $1 million payday at the end of it, regardless. But the second thing is that now I can actually show you how our math lines up almost exactly with the Trump administration's own calculations. They did the math on a total of 9 different scenarios, different outcomes for future 28-year-old Americans who were born with Trump accounts. Each vertical line represents different market conditions: weak markets, average markets, and awesome markets. And here's our $1 million scenario: max contributions under average market conditions. But can I just geek out for a second? Because it's kind of interesting how they decided what weak, average, and awesome actually mean. Basically, what they did was look at the last 50 years of S&P 500 data, tracking the best of the American stock market. Then they calculated the returns on all possible rolling 28-year periods over that 50-year time span. Then they picked 3 of those periods: the one which produced the worst results, the one which produced the best results, and then the one which produced average results. So that's how we get to these 3 lines, but I'll keep explaining using the projections for when your kid turns 18 and not 28, because that's actually when the money you've invested unlocks for use. So these are probably the more useful timescales for most people. The low return scenario for 18-year periods is 5.4% a year. Medium returns, 10.3%, and high returns, a whopping average of 18.5% every single year. So at this end of the graph, if the stock market kind of stinks and you do absolutely nothing with your Trump account except receive the $1,000 of seed money at the very beginning, then after 18 years, your money hardly grows because there wasn't much to compound. Best case scenario, you invest nothing, your 18-year-old could have 21 grand in the bank if markets knock it out of the park. These middle points are what your earnings look like if you only contribute half of what's allowed under the rules. So instead of the max contribution of $5K a year, you're only doing half that, but still increasing by 2% each year. That's how you end up with these middle earning scenarios. And then at the high end, by 18 years old, if you maximally contribute every single year, you could end up with around 200, 300, or 700 grand, depending on how markets do. So that's the math. You can see it works out if the variables line up in very particular ways. But there are 2 important questions we haven't fully answered yet. What are the strings attached? And how realistic a money-making vehicle is this really? So one critique you'll hear about these Trump accounts is that they disproportionately benefit the wealthy, which, as a side note, would be ironic if true, because historically the whole idea of baby bonds was basically what these Trump accounts are doing, except designed in a way to give people with less money a leg up.
A baby bond, the idea was this is a universal policy, automatic enrollment. Every baby in the country gets $1,000. After that, the government will make progressive annual deposits up to $2,000 a year, income indexed. So your lowest income families are going to be getting your largest contributions.
But the reason these Trump accounts might benefit the wealthy is through the math I showed you, which is that you can only really dramatically multiply your money if you, the parent, already have money to invest. Like, remember the difference between what the kids with the least amount of money can end up with after 18 years compared to the kids with the most amount of money. That's a pretty big spread. And that is, the argument goes, increasing the wealth gap, not shrinking it. And anyway, how many Americans have an extra 5 grand a year these days that they're not already using? According to the latest Fed data, which updates every 3 years, you know how much cash Americans hold in accounts that you can actually spend from? The median for couples with kids, around $12K in transaction accounts, like checking, savings, that kind of thing. And if you're single with kids, half of Americans have $2,500 or less in the bank.
About a third of American households don't have $2,000 in emergency savings. So that's not even in a college savings account or in an IRA. That's emergency savings to use if your car breaks down, if you have an unexpected bill. So then to think that somehow they're going to come up with $5,000 per kid per year to contribute is just unrealistic.
But Andrew, you might say, if those are median numbers you just showed for those low bank balances, then that means half of Americans have more than that amount of money available. So maybe some of them can fully leverage the Trump accounts. Yeah, maybe. But then the question worth asking is, if you have $5,000 just sitting around waiting for an opportunity like this, is this really the best place to spend it? Because what's really important to know about Trump accounts is what Trump's own economic advisors state in their own analysis, that once the funds unlock at 18 years old, the account generally is treated as a traditional IRA and generally is subject to the same withdrawal rules as other traditional IRAs. Okay, so the moment the money unlocks, the Trump account actually becomes like a retirement account. And the rules for a traditional IRA are that if you try to withdraw the money before you turn 59 and a half, then not only do you get taxed on what you withdraw, you're also going to pay a 10% penalty for early withdrawal. Now, there is a carve-out on this for Trump accounts. According to the White House, if you use what you withdraw to pay for higher education, or to buy your first home, or to start a business, that last one's kind of vague, but whatever, then there's no 10% penalty. And of course, if you're withdrawing your contributions as opposed to the account's earnings, then you already paid tax on it because your contributions are made using after-tax money. So you shouldn't get double taxed in that sense. But the earnings on that account, everything you made from compound interest and stock performance, would be taxed as regular take-home pay and not capital gains once you take it out. So the advantage here is really about tax deferral. Instead of paying Uncle Sam every year as your account value goes up, you're keeping all that money inside this growth chamber where the magic of compounding can do its thing. And then only once you're ready to tap that well do you have to pay the taxes that are due. So what's wrong with that?
There are any number of better ways to save for your child's future, whether it's in a 529 plan, specifically for education, or even in a non-tax advantaged plan, often will be a better choice than putting your own money into these Trump accounts. I expect the Trump accounts will not have a big impact on overall savings rates, on sort of long-term wealth trajectories, simply because it's not an attractive savings vehicle, it's a temporary program, and it's adding to federal debt, which crowds out savings elsewhere in the economy. There's also a political messaging component here. It is a Trump account. It has Trump's name on it. He is, if nothing, a tremendous salesman. And so I think the overarching goal of these accounts is to give Trump a named section of the tax code and a program that he can be proud of.
Now, to be clear, it's not that the Trump accounts have no redeeming qualities, because they do. There's the free seed money.
$1,000 is a big deal for the kids. There are lots of low-income kids who otherwise would not have that money in savings. And so even if that money grows and at 18 they use it to pay for their books or for living expenses in school or their first year of college, that's a big difference.
There's also the fact that your employer can make some contributions on your behalf, which would reduce your taxable income. But the claim of jump-starting the American dream in a tax environment that already has at least a dozen or so different tax advantage savings vehicles, Trump accounts add options, yes, but also complexity. And it's far from clear whether the people who need the jumpstart the most will really get much of one at all.